For today's video workshop, we are going to be discussing conflict resolution and trust. This service is brought to you through the Counseling and Psychological Services Office, CAPS, at the IU Health Center, located on the 4th floor. You can reach us by calling 812-855-5711. As we get ready to dive in, I want to just briefly touch on what you can expect for today. Today's presentation is going to be very, very similar to how any of our live workshops are run. So if you've attended one of those, you know a little bit about what you can expect. You can expect about 45 to 50 minutes to complete the presentation in its entirety, which includes several journal prompts in which you will be encouraged to pause, spend some time journaling, and then press play to continue. The beauty of being able to do this on your own means that if you want to do it in chunks, you can certainly do that, and you are also able to always do this video at any time that is convenient for you. Yes, there are going to be lots of different journal prompts throughout today's presentation, and the reason that we choose to do that is because we find it to be important that we focus on ensuring you have something to take away from this, and that you have an opportunity to really digest the information and question ways to individualize it to yourself and your unique circumstances. So that might be creating additional insight on what's getting in the way or what you're needing to do. Bearing that in mind, I do encourage you to have a pen or a pencil and a piece of paper to write down your responses, or if you prefer to type, you can always type in the notes section of your phone or on a Word document on your computer. We're going to start this presentation off with a journal question, so I want you to answer the following. What types of skills do you use with friends, families, or partners when solving conflict? What types of beliefs do you have related to confrontation? I encourage you to pause for time to record your answers, and when you're ready, you can press play to continue. I find that it's really important, if we're going to discuss conflict resolution, to spend some time really outlining the difference between assertiveness and aggression. As often when I'm speaking with my individual students about this, I notice that most people view confrontation as being the same, as being aggressive, that assertiveness and aggression are the same thing, when in actuality they're very different. And there are ways for us to confront and resolve conflict and engage in conflict safely and more assertively than we can aggressively. So there are some key differences between the two. The first is assertiveness is a direct expression of one's views, thoughts, and feelings of a conflict situation, when aggression, on the opposite end, is typically only the expression of our feelings and needs without the respect for others. Assertiveness is appropriately direct, open, and honest, and it clarifies our needs. Aggression typically employs disrespectful, aggressive, manipulative, possibly abusive tactics to get the point across. Usually we find with assertiveness, like, goals are reached, there's a compromise that's reached, or just the idea of understanding each other happens. And often when individuals are communicating more aggressively, it doesn't usually seem like people are likely to solve that concern, resolve that conflict. Assertiveness ensures that it is always operating from respect from ourselves and for other people, and it's always working to assume the best regarding other people's intentions, not assuming the worst. And aggression, on the opposite hand, typically is making more negative assumptions about someone else and their motives. So we can break this down even further into passive, assertive, and aggressive communication. And I have this chart to illustrate just a bit of the differences, where you can tell what passive, aggressive, or assertive communication looks like and typically sounds like as well. So passive communication usually involves someone prioritizing the needs, wants, and feelings of others over themselves. So sure, you can take my car today even though it's going to horribly inconvenience me. Or sure, I can work this later shift even though that means I'm going to have to cancel the study date that I made. Always putting the needs of others above their own, not feeling comfortable being assertive with what they're needing. Typically, you'll hear passive communicators being a bit more soft-spoken and quiet, lacking in confidence, no expression of their own needs or wants, and allowing others to take advantage of them, whether conscious or subconscious. Aggressive is the complete other side of the spectrum. So this is someone expressing their needs by bullying and being really disrespectful and ignoring the needs of another person. This is usually done in disrespectful, highly aggressive ways, like yelling or stonewalling or bullying or manipulating or name calling. Usually individuals who are using more aggressive communication frustrate easily, are loud and overbearing. There's an unwillingness to compromise, frequent interruptions, and then the use of lots of domination tactics. And assertive communication is right in the middle. This is emphasizing the importance of both people's needs. So passive focuses on the needs of others, aggressive focuses on the needs of themselves. Assertive is trying to blend the two. Individuals who are engaging in more assertive communication typically know how to listen without interruption, and they are also standing up for themselves. There's a willingness to compromise, the clear statement of their wants and needs, as well as being willing to listen to the wants and needs of another person. Now, you might be looking at this chart thinking, okay, I might fall mostly in the passive category, but I can be assertive about X, Y, and Z. Those are excellent things to start paying attention to, is that can be a good indicator of being able to question, okay, why am I more passive here and more assertive here? Why am I assertive everywhere else but passive or aggressive in these areas? Being able to delve in and start questioning that can be very important for developing our insight. I love this chart. It's taken from one of the website CCI's worksheets, and I think it does an excellent job really breaking down different types of passive, aggressive, and assertive responses. You might be looking at this chart and can think of better examples, and that's okay. Keep those in your head too, as those are additional good indicators of what examples can be. But as you can see here in this scenario, a friend asks to borrow your car. This is a huge inconvenience for you. If you're responding more passively, you might say, yeah, I guess that's fine. Do you need me to fill it? Or, sure, I guess. Or something else that's putting the needs of another person in front of their own. Aggressive would be, no way, why would I let you borrow the car? You're crazy to even ask. Or, seriously, don't you know that I have class? Come on, like, don't you check my work schedule? Something a lot more aggressive, only considering the needs of themselves. Assertive could be saying, I need my car that day, but I'll have time to drop you off. I need my car that day. I'm not sure I'm going to have time to drop you off. Is there anything that I can help you do to find a ride? Something else like that. So considering the needs of ourselves and considering the needs of another person. So we're going to practice learning how to outline the differences. I think it can be very tricky, especially with just how we were socialized to believe confrontation to look. We've been socialized to believe that confrontation typically looks more aggressive. So I want us to try and really break down the difference by practicing. So pause the video for time to record your answers. Your boss asks you to stay late while everyone else can leave. You're always the one asked to stay late, and tonight you have plans. What is an example of a passive, aggressive, and assertive response? Press pause, and then when you're ready, press play to continue. For our next practice, I want you to think about your roommate left a mess in the kitchen. They always leave a mess, and you're always expected to clean it up. This time, you're fed up and way too busy. What is an example of a passive, aggressive, and assertive response? Pause to record your answers, and when you're ready, you can press play to continue. So if we're working to discern the difference and to work through conflict resolution in a more appropriate and helpful way, it is important to outline some good fair fighting rules. And I have 9 different rules on this PowerPoint. The first rule is before you begin, ask yourself why you feel upset. And the reason I encourage people to do this is often we're fighting about one thing when we're really fighting about another. And so we need to know what we are actually trying to communicate, what we're actually fighting about, and why we feel the way we feel to the best of our ability. So if you ask yourself why you can't find an answer, I encourage you to continue asking why until you can. So in that previous example, Are you actually angry because your roommate left your dishes out? Or are you angry because every time they leave the dishes out, it makes you feel inconsiderate? Or it makes you feel like you're doing an unshare of the work, or it makes you feel like they're disregarding, because perhaps the plates are yours, your property. So actually ask why, so you can be laser focused about what you're trying to communicate, rather than, if we go on to the other one, getting really off topic and starting to fight about different things and having difficulty really communicating overall. So the importance of that is that we do discuss one issue at a time. It can be really easy when we're feeling activated to start telling this person absolutely everything that they've ever done wrong. But if we start doing that, the situation just escalates and it can turn messy very quickly. So I encourage you to try and be laser focused about it. If you notice yourself starting to deviate, working to bring it back, and perhaps even saying to that person, okay, it seems like we're trying to get off topic. That sounds like it's important too. Can we come back to that? The third is no degrading language. So discuss the issue, not the person. That is my biggest suggestion and biggest piece of advice. Just like fight the issue together, not the other person. So don't offer put down, swearing, name calling. Try not to make the issue about that person's character. Spend more time focusing on the actual problem at hand. Fourth rule is express your feelings with words and responsibility. And we're going to talk about this in a little while, but using statements like I feel or I would like. So we can't just say anything if it starts with the word I, but we want to learn how to offer that feedback in a way that doesn't sound blameful and trigger that person to go off in a more activated response. Take turns talking. This is exceptionally important because you might find that it can become easy to interrupt the other person when you have a thought or when you want to prove a point. Make sure that you spend some time outlining who gets to speak when. And ensure that you are listening to hear and not listening to respond. That's a very different sort of experience. So listen with intent to understand from where they're coming, and then when it is your opportunity to speak, you can take that opportunity to speak and respond appropriately. If you find this to be way too difficult to really understand who has enough time, I encourage you actually set a literal timer, as that can make it a lot easier to understand who can go who and what taking turns talking actually looks like. No stonewalling. So stonewalling can become very easy for people to do when they feel activated, wanting to retreat in their shell, wanting not to say anything, just being done. This is called stonewalling. This is likely being done because we're wanting to resolve the anxiety, distress that we're feeling from the fight, but the original issue is never solved and it can actually cause longer term pain. So if you are needing to take a break, I encourage you to communicate that rather than just stonewalling so the other person can understand where you're at. No yelling. Conflicts are not won by who is loudest. Conflicts are won in regards to whether or not the issue is solved. There's not a winner, there's not a loser. The only win is that the issue has been solved or worked through in a way that makes sense for both parties. Take time to find out or take a time out if things get too heated. So again, very similar to stonewalling, this limit might look different, and ensure that you communicate that limit. If it's starting to feel too problematic or unsafe, say, hey, I want a timeout, but then be willing to agree when you want to come back. So if that other person is not comfortable with timeouts, they know that we're actually going to come back to the conversation and it's not just being avoided, and vice versa. And then the last is attempt to find a compromise or an understanding. So even if we can't find mutual ground, can we understand each other? Can we learn something? Can we make a game plan to proceed? Our next set of journal questions I want you to answer. What are some things that people do when arguing that makes it difficult for you to solve a conflict? In instances in which a conflict has been solved easily, what happened? So what was going on behaviorally with that other person, emotionally, relationally? What were they saying? What weren't they saying? Pause video for time to record your answers, and when you're ready, you can press play. So as we talked about before in the fair fighting rules, we did begin to touch on I statements. And I love I statements because I think I statements do an excellent job actually communicating what we're wanting it to communicate. We are just typically socialized to communicate in a lot of yous. Like, you made me feel, when you did this, blah, 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 blah. I statements are attempting to communicate our own feelings and beliefs rather than what we think that other person was intending to do. So rather than saying, you were really mean to me, you're such a slob, you're this or that, we're trying to argue how we think another person feels and what their intention is, and that's not going to be a safe bet, as opposed to saying, I feel blank. So some examples are, instead of saying, why don't you ever clean up the kitchen, it's so annoying, or you're such a slob, I can't believe you'd be so disrespectful to me, try saying, I feel frustrated and taken advantage of when I have to clean up the kitchen every day. I statements enable the speaker to be assertive, but we're not making accusations. When an accusation is made, it just naturally makes the other person want to fight back. And this is what typically causes people to become defensive, and that can escalate the problem further. I statements make it a bit safer to communicate how we're actually feeling, and the other person can take it in a much better way. Now, when used correctly, an I statement can help foster positive communication, and it can help people become stronger. It helps individuals who get stuck in a perpetual cycle of blame when discussing conflict. So it's not taking the blame or ownership on us where we don't need to, and it's not deflecting the ownership on someone else. It's just simply sharing how we feel. So but again, you can't just say anything with an I and expect it to go over well. So I want you to think, what is an example of a not so helpful I statement? I hate when blank, 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 blank. I know blah, 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 blah. I feel like you're a blank. And you could insert lots of different derogatory, unhelpful, disrespectful statements there. Just because it starts with an I doesn't always mean that it is a helpful I statement. So here are some examples. The situation is that your dad wants you to stop calling him rude names whenever he drills you about if you got your homework done. A common response could be, if you call me rude again, I'm going to stop paying for your cell phone bill. I statements include, I feel very sad when I'm called rude names because they hurt my feelings and don't make me feel cared for. Very different. Another is a situation becomes angry when with her sister when she borrows her favorite shirt and returns it with it stained. A common response would be, you ruined my jacket, how could you be so careless? An I statement would be, I am upset that my coat was damaged because I can't afford to replace it. I really appreciate it when things I loan out are cared for. Again, it feels very different. The first one, you ruined my jacket, how could you be so careless? It makes people naturally just want to put their hands up and start fighting verbally with the other person and defending themselves, when an I statement creates a calmer place where you're able to actually discuss the concern and express your feelings in a more helpful, open way. So I like this, again, it's from goodtherapy.org, as just a great representation of what an I statement could look like. So I feel blank because blank, when blank, what I need is blank. So it could be, I feel frustrated because the dishes are always left out. What I need is this. I feel upset when I don't hear from you for hours because it makes me feel like I'm not cared about. What I need is to find communication that works for us both. Looks something like that. Often people usually communicate, you didn't care about me at all. If you would have texted me. Something like that. So you can rearrange these in ways that work, but I think that this is a really great chart at outlining the beginning parts of those statements. So I feel this, when this, because this, and here's what I need. That last part is really important too. Let's practice. So I want you to pause the video for time to record your answers to the following questions. How can you use the use of I statements when initiating assertive confrontation with a friend, coworker, partner, or roommate? And what differences do you notice between I statements and you statements? Take time to record your response, and when you're ready, you can press play. Moving on to the 4 horsemen, and this has been coined by John Gottman. This graphic was taken directly from their website. The 4 horsemen really outline the different things that individuals do when they are in a conflict. So on the left, you'll see the different horsemen. It's criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling. So criticism, as coined by John Gottman, is verbally attacking the personality or character of another person. You, blah, 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 trying to say what their intention was. When you don't text me, it seems like you're a insert very critical, disrespectful name. An antidote to them is a gentle startup. So again, talking about your feelings with I statements and express a positive need. The next horseman is contempt. So it is attacking a sense of self with the intent to insult or abuse another person, whether that intent is conscious or subconscious. So you are going into that confrontation ready to fight, ready to attack that other person, ready to start calling them names with the intent to insult or abuse them. What the antidote to this is to build a culture of appreciation. So before you are going to tell your roommate, your family member, your friend, your partner of this, pause and remind yourself of this person's positive qualities. Work to find gratitude for positive actions, because that is going to set you up in a stronger, more positive emotional way and create more space for you to openly communicate and not just aggressively communicate. Defensiveness is victimizing yourself to ward off a perceived attack, and you're reversing all the blame. So you're not taking responsibility, getting very defensive, always shifting the focus back on the other person. The antidote is to take responsibility. So pause and question, where do you actually have responsibility? Take that, empathize with that individual's perspective. What could they be seeing that I'm not seeing? Can I apologize for that? And then again, offer an apology for wrongdoings, but I'm not saying take responsibility for absolutely everything, including things that aren't your fault. You're going to want to be able to discern the difference. And the last one we've talked a little bit about is stonewalling. So again, withdrawing, avoiding, because we do not want any conflict. This often can show people that we're distant, that we are separated from them, that we disapprove. It can be a very loud, although it's not actually loud, but a very loud source of a horseman. The best antidote is physiological self-soothing. So if you are needing or finding yourself starting to stonewall, could you communicate to that person, hi, I'm feeling myself starting to retreat. I'm going to need a little bit. I'll come back in 15 minutes. And then take those 15 minutes to spend some time self-soothing, distracting yourself, doing something, so then when you can come back to it, you're coming back to it with fresh eyes. For this set of journal questions, I want you to think about, what horsemen did you find yourself relating most to? And what types of things could you do during confrontation that makes it hard for another person to get through to you? So focus on developing some insight about that. And then once you've developed insight, I encourage you to question, how could you make appropriate changes or utilize some of those antidotes so you can engage in conflict in a far more productive, fair way? Pause the video for time to record your responses, and when you're ready, you can press play to continue. Now, let's say you're continuing with this and you're attempting to apply them and you're noticing that it's still not enough. Perhaps there's still a lot of conflict and you're believing that it might warrant doing some couples counseling, which we do offer for, any form of pair. It doesn't just have to be romantic partners. It can be roommates and friends. Or you're noticing an increase in other mental health symptoms for you, and you can see a lot of those symptoms and a lot of those changes that would warrant additional services, including any thoughts related to hurting ourselves or another person. So homicide, suicide, or self-harm. Those are all good indicators that coming to the Counseling and Psychological Services office would be a good idea. And we do offer individual, couples, and group counseling. If you are already seeing a provider there and you're looking to make another appointment, you can call by dialing 812-855-5711. If you do not have a provider and you're wanting to schedule an appointment for the first time, you can call that same number and you will get scheduled for a 30-minute session. We find that those 30 minutes can be very effective for students. Sometimes it is everything that they're needing, and sometimes it's the start of what they're needing. But the hope is that we're going to be able to assess what's coming up for you, dive into it a bit further, and leave you going home with some interventions and food for thought and practice. We are always offering after crisis services, so anytime that we are closed, if you need to speak with someone at 2 a.m. on a Saturday, you can call 812-855-5711 and select option 1 to be able to get in contact with one of our crisis counselors. We also have crisis services available via the phone or face-to-face for our emergency walk-ins anytime our actual building is open, Monday through Friday, 8 until 4:30. I encourage you, please always check the CAPS website and the IU Health Center website to ensure that you have the most up-to-date and accurate information about our services. If you are not needing an emergency appointment or you are not wanting to wait very long to schedule an individual counseling appointment, you just need something right away, we are always able to provide free drop-in appointments as long as we have that service up and running. And we'll talk about it in a little bit later, but it's called Let's Talk Now. Please note that emergencies are not going to be best served in our Let's Talk Now drop-in appointments, but are always going to be best served at our emergency appointments. We also offer sexual assault counseling, which is an extension of CAPS, as well as other free workshops, including our Monday Motivators, live and pre-recorded web workshops like this, mindfulness, and so on and so forth. Diving a little bit deeper into our Let's Talk program, this is broken down into 2 different subsets. Our Let's Talk Now are those free informal drop-in conversations that we can have. They're available to any student. Just look up by going to www.go.iu.edu/letstalk to see where these individuals are located. And you are able to show right up, sit down, talk with a counselor for about 30 minutes about what you're needing. No appointment is necessary. And then you don't have to do anything else. If you choose to come back, you can. Or if you and that counselor decide, hey, additional services might be needed, they can get you in touch with someone. So that can be a great option if it's not an emergency, but you're still not really wanting to wait a week or 2 to get in with a new provider or your provider in general. Let's Keep Talking aims at being able to serve our traditionally underserved students. So we have these services located at various cultural centers on campus. It's our CAPS counselors. They are over at those various offices a couple times per week. So if you identify with any of the cultural centers on campus and you are wanting to seek services there, you are able to call CAPS and just disclose that over the phone and they will get you scheduled. So if you're wanting to see someone at the Asian Culture Center, you are able to call, ask for that, and you'll get scheduled as soon as possible. Our sexual assault crisis services are an extension from CAPS. So this focuses on ensuring that we are serving individuals who have experienced anything related to sexual violence and are wanting to make that a part of their therapy journey. These services are free of charge. It includes individual and group counseling, support groups, couples counseling, psychiatry care, information and assistance with medical, judicial, or legal issues. And you would be working with a provider who specializes in trauma-informed care and working with individuals who have experienced sexual violence or anything relatively related. So if you've experienced any of the above concerns and you're wanting to make it at least part of your experience in therapy, you are welcome. When you call to make your appointment, you can disclose that you'd like to see a SACS counselor, again, SACS, S-A-C-S, or you can continue to schedule that initial appointment and your therapist will ensure that they get you scheduled with the right person. There's also an after-hours crisis line related to sexual assault or violence emergencies by calling 812-855-8900. That phone number is not the same phone number as the general CAPS after hours line. They are different. If for some reason you mix them up, that's okay. The provider will ensure that they get you in touch with the right person. And please note that these services are always available for all genders and all identities. On IU's campus, but not affiliated with CAPS, we have one more counseling option, and that is called the Center for Human Growth. You can visit the website www.education.indiana.edu/CHG. This is in the School of Education Department. They can be reached by calling 812-856-8302. As always, to get the most accurate and up-to-date information, visit their website. Typically, though, they're very cost-effective. The first session is free, and you're able to pay what you can afford. They also have evening hours, which can make things wonderfully accessible for students who might have later or earlier classes or very, very full schedules. And they do also offer individual and couples counseling. So if you are interested in accessing that as a service or exploring that as a service instead, you can visit the website, give them a call to schedule today. That is the end of today's workshop. I encourage you to continue to explore our website for our various service options, to continue to watch different pre-recorded workshops, attend any of our live workshops, and so on and so forth. If you are looking to get in touch with us to discuss anything different or to make an appointment, as always, you can call us at 812-855-5711. Select option 1 for our after-hours crisis line, which is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.